These dirt jumpers look pretty similar, but they have one difference, and maybe I've seen it in the thumbnail. The cranks are different. This one is 175, so a normal crank, and this one is pretty short. It's an 150 millimeters, so it's quite short. And it has definitely one disadvantage that we come to later. But today we are focusing on the advantages and we'll test the short cranks. And normally you are searching for somehow miracles and tips and tricks to learn tricks faster. And maybe this is one of these, I say miracles, where you can do tricks easier because the pedals are much closer together. But this is just a theory, so let's test. And I will warm up with my normal bike with the normal cranks and then we will really test it out. Today the conditions are not ideal, so it's a bit wet, but we still have fun and we'll try it out. As you can see, here's a lot of mud and sledger everywhere, but most dirt parks are closed and not open in the winter at the moment, so we are happy that we have our two trick jumps and our pump track that's almost always rideable. So let's do some fun tricks like a backflip or 360 tabletop or backflip can for warm up. And now let's start with some no-foot tricks, because this is what the cranks are really important for, or where you notice a difference. And this is the normal bike I ride almost every day, and the other bike I just built, so I've never ridden it, so I will see how much time it needs to get used to it. Let's do a no-foot can here just to get back in the game for today and get the feeling how the normal cranks are feeling. So the next trick I will do is a tail whip, because I think this will be the trick where the difference in cranks will be most noticeable, because it should be easier to catch, but I will see. So this is again with the 175 cranks, and I think it's time to change the bike. As you can see, it's a specialized P3 too, and this will be my first trick. I try a no-foot first, and it really felt a bit different and felt, of course, a little bit easier as I thought, but it also felt a little bit different because I have to get used to placing my feet further together. And no-foot can works too. And yeah, so let's do a tail whip, I guess. And this felt good too, and it felt easier, but I have to say, you have to really get used to it. I just didn't land ideally on the paddles, but I think in the long term you will have an advantage. It will get easier because you can place your feet further together. Now let's try a no-foot can, and of course this one feels good too, but I haven't placed my feet ideally on the pedals, but I think this is the learning curve you have to accept with new cranks. Now I do a backflip can, but this one didn't feel that good, so you know the drill, I have to do it again. Again, this is not up to the cranks, but up to my getting used to the bike. This is of course my sixth time riding this bike, and this one worked much better. I think I stretched my leg. That's what I want to see. I think we should pick up another opinion, and we have Alexandra of course filming, and she's riding too, and her bike has a 165 millimeter crank, so she's closer to the 150, but of course she has to adjust too, and I'm excited to hear what she thinks about it. So let's walk to the landing, because this is much more important, but somehow I messed up the filming, because of course you want to see the pedals and the feet, and I just drummed around, I think. So we will do it another time, and then we'll ask the first opinion of Alexandra, and she will do another no-foot. Yeah, she placed her feet really good. And as this is a German video, I will translate. She liked the cranks even more than on her own bike, and she found it a bit easier to do the tricks. Of course, this was just the second try. She will do a no-foot can too, and yet again she found it easy and pleasant to place the feet on the pedals again. And now she will try a one-foot can just to check out the one-foot handling of the cranks, and yet again perfect placement of the foot. So yet again she said she found it very easy to adjust to the new cranks, but she had to handle the new bike and adjust. This was harder, she said, than to adjust to the cranks. So it's a good sign for the cranks. And then she said that we changed the cranks on her bike like 2 years ago, and from 175 to 165, and her thought is that this helped her to adjust on the new cranks too. And then she suggested to ride the pump track because she felt that the cranks might even make a bigger difference there, because you have the feet placed closer to each other and the legs straighter and more downward. After a round on the pump track, she found that her theory was right and that pushing was indeed a little bit easier, and she felt that she could transfer more power onto the pedals. And she concluded that there is a big difference to a normal length crank. And I said, yeah, I can imagine, because you're pushing more downward and not that far forward or backward as before on a normal crank. And then she asked if maybe on a pump track you can even just need no cranks and have the pedals in one position on both sides, so parallel of course. If you want us to try, leave a comment and we will maybe build something to try it out. And now she's jokingly asking if you prefer the blue helmet, so my helmet, or her, the basketball helmet on my head, and which one is more my style. And now of course I have to try and give it a really good pushing, if you call it that way, on the pump track. It was a lot of fun and I really noticed that difference too. And I'm not sure if it's really that super significant, but it felt better and you could maybe push a little bit harder and maybe even be more efficient in pushing. And now it's time for the summary. Of course, this is just a short video, so if you want another test with maybe more people, more jumps, more tricks, you can leave us a comment too. And I have to say, I really liked it. I found it really that the cranks have an advantage, and this is maybe a direction to go for dirt jumpers. Of course, there's one disadvantage of the short cranks. There are simply not that many cranks to buy that are under 165 millimeters length. Thanks a lot if you watched until here. I hope you learned something. I am sorry if this translation is not that perfect. I try to improve, and if you want to learn more tricks and stuff around the mountain biking and BMX riding, I would be really honored to have you as a subscriber.